So it's time to give you an update on what we've been up to and what's coming in V5. So a little bit more than a year ago, I was standing on a stage similar to this at GrafanaCon 2016, unveiling and talking about Grafana V4 that then shipped with a much sought after alerting feature. So what have we been up to in the meantime? Well, this year happened, 2017. And during last year, we released 4 minor feature releases, point releases. And I just want to go through some of the highlights of the features that we added last year. Starting with a few additions to alerting, mostly through new integrations and notifications, but also added alert deduplication to support HA setups. Next up, we added a new panel in the new heat map, which looks pretty cool. And we also invested more in Prometheus, as Prometheus is by far the fastest growing data source among Grafana users. So we really wanted to make the experience of using Prometheus in Grafana better. So we completely reworked the Prometheus query editor to support function name lookup and integrated documentation for functions as well, metric name lookup, key or label names and label value lookups as well. So this really made working with Prometheus or writing Prometheus queries in Grafana a lot quicker and easier. We also improved annotations. Annotations is a very old feature in Grafana that allowed you to query event data and overlay that on top of your graphs. But what a lot of people have been asking for many years is a way to create those events from within Grafana. And this is something we enabled in version 4.6. So now you can click any region on a graph to create an event annotation. We also added support for region annotations, that you can just mark a region on any graph and create and tag up an event that you then can, of course, show on other dashboards. And there's, of course, an API that you can use to create these from other systems. We also added dashboard version history that allowed you to view diffs and restore old dashboard versions. This whole feature was not actually implemented by anyone on the core team. It was contributed by Walmart Labs. So a big thanks for them for this feature. In terms of data sources, we added a few data sources last year, specifically MySQL and Postgres as core built-in data sources. So now you can visualize and alert on data in your SQL databases. We also partnered with Microsoft and by adding an external plugin for Azure Monitor and Application Insights. We also updated and added a few of our premium plugins that we include in our support subscription. And then we also have all the community-provided data sources that saw updates and new additions. So that was a few of the highlights that we worked on last year and shipped. But during the same time, we also spent a lot of time on V5. So starting, I think, in April or May, we started working on V5. So this has by far been the longest time period that we worked on a major version. And when we sat down and started thinking about what we wanted to do with the next major version of Grafana, we really wanted to focus not on adding a bunch of new capabilities and features, but really trying to reinvest in the core features and core attributes of Grafana and make sure that those features and attributes stay true and good. And one of the core things in Grafana is, of course, the UX. So some people always commend Grafana's UI and user experience. But we felt that this was an area that we really wanted to improve on and be even better. So this attribute stays true for many more years. So that's why in Grafana V5, there's a ton of UX changes, starting with the new side nav and page design. So this new side nav has icons that you can hover over to see the menus. You can, of course, hide the whole side nav if you don't want to see it. We also have this new tab look for all the configuration pages that makes it a lot easier to move around the different configuration views. We also have a search bar in all pages that have a list. So if you have a ton of data sources, it's super easy to just filter down the list. Same is true for the alert list. If you can now sort of quickly search and filter down that list. We worked on the light theme. This is sort of a theme that has never been as polished as the dark theme, and we wanted to change that for version 5, as we know a lot of people also use that. So here's a few screenshots of the light theme. We're really happy with sort of how it turned out. It now feels as polished and sort of well-designed as the dark theme. We also reworked dashboard settings to make this sort of a little bit more accessible and easy to switch around between different settings and access them more easily. So as you can see here, we have changed all the toolbar buttons to the right, and the dashboard settings menu is no longer a drop-down. It now opens a consolidated view where you can access all your dashboard settings, like annotations, variables, links, version history, and the new permissions. So talking about sort of our goal to improve the core attributes and features of Grafana, one of the core things that you do in Grafana is build dashboards. And this is also something that we felt Grafana could see a lot of improvements in. Take, for example, this dashboard has a pretty straightforward Grafana design or layout where you have panels laid out in rows where all the panels have the same height on each row. And this has been kind of a limitation in how you lay out panels. There's also been a kind of clunky experience moving panels around in Grafana. So that's why we now in V5 have a completely new grid system that allows you to sort of quickly move panels around, panels move out of their way, and it also enables new types of layouts where you can have panels of different height next to each other and create a lot more it's a lot easier to move panels around and design dashboards, no longer the same clunky experience as in previous versions. So really excited about So another thing we changed is the new panel menu. So gone is the kind of clunky, funky panel menu from the past. Now it's a more traditional drop-down. We also added some hover effect and a small caret when you hover over a panel, so you actually know how to interact with the panel, something that trips up a lot of new users with Grafana is sort of how do I interact with the panel, how do I change things? So that's a little bit easier now. And we also show you the shortcuts. So if you just hover over a panel and hit V, or you go into view mode, or E, you go into edit mode. So some really good UX improvements for both existing and new users. So another thing that sort of this new grid system enables is sort of new types of panels and new types of layouts. This was just an example of new types of layouts where you can really mix the height of different panels. Another thing I have a slide for, because I always forget to mention this when I demo V5, is backward compatibility. This new grid engine has a completely different sort of positioning model for each of the panels, but it's totally backward compatible. So if you open a dashboard from previous versions of Grafana, they will look the same as they did previously. In fact, I'm showing here a video of Grafana V1, released 4 years ago. And I've built a dashboard, has some template variable, and I'm going to export it and import it into Grafana V5. And as you'll see, it will look, the same, and the template variable will work. And so don't be fooled that sort of this is something that has come for free. It's actually something that's sort of more than 1,000 lines of code actually in the background doing the migration here from the first version to version 2 through version 3, because during the last 4 years we have changed the dashboard schema model and so the data model that builds up a dashboard. We have made a ton of changes to that model, but we also care a lot about backward compatibility. So we have always made sure to migrate to the new schema, because we care a lot about backward compatibility. You should always be safe upgrading Grafana and make sure sort of your dashboard should look the same, your graph should look the same. And this is true for V5. What isn't true is that if you save a dashboard in V5 and import it into V4 or V3, you won't see anything because the positioning of the dashboard panels is different. But you can always use the dashboard history version to then restore if you want to downgrade, but don't do that. Another cool thing with the new grid is that it also spearheaded or kicked off our migration to React. So Grafana is old enough at the time where Angular was popular, and that is kind of a dead framework now. And to make sure that Grafana can attract talented front-end developers for many more years and stay relevant, we are migrating to React, and this new grid component kind of spearheaded that work. It's going to take time, so it's not something that's going to be done over a day, but some of the new pages in V5 are completely written in React. Another cool thing with the grid is that it's going to open up new possibilities for new types of panels. So instead of having a bunch of small panels on the side, like the single-stat panel, which is very inefficient because each of those panels is going to fire its own query, we want to introduce a new multi-stat panel or extend the single-stat panel. And that's something that could look like this. This is a mock-up. This does not ship with V5. It's something that we're really excited about that we'll do after to sort of make more use of this, how the new types of layouts you can have in V5. Another feature that we worked on last year is improving Graphite. We worked both on the Graphite project, adding tags, custom functions, and APIs for function docs. And all of this is sort of integrated into Graphite's support in Grafana. So the Graphite query editor now supports Graphite tags and a new function, group by tags and alias by tags. And we use the new APIs for function documentation, both within the function picker, but also when you click on functions in your query, you can read the documentation for those functions right within the UI. This was a really popular new addition that we unveiled at FOSDEM, improving Grafana from a provisioning standpoint. Some would say making it more cloud native, but I really hate that word. But it might make sense in this case because it's all about making Grafana more sort of easier to provision, easier to define through config files. Before, you could only define your data sources and dashboards through the UI or the HTTP API, but starting from V5, you can do that. You can define data sources and data dashboards through configuration files. Yeah. That was the only feature that got applause at FOSDEM. None of the UI stuff got applause, so I'm glad you applauded the new grid. But the thing that we spent almost the most amount of time recently and last year is improving Grafana from sort of making Grafana easier to run in large installations where you have thousands of dashboards, thousands of users. So to improve that case, we have added dashboard folders, user teams, and permissions. So to expose dashboard folders, we have updated the dashboard picker or search a little bit with these expandable sections. For example, here's a dashboard folder named marketing. I'm expanding and collapsing that. And we also added these sections for recently opened and star dashboard. And I can go into the configuration for this dashboard folder and look at the dashboards it contains, and also change permissions, permissions that are inherited by all the dashboards that are placed in this folder. And here I assign some permissions on a team level. We also provide permissions on users and role level. We also have this new sort of managed dashboards view that allows you to do batch actions on dashboards, like moving them into a folder or doing batch deletes. So Teams is also a new concept that will make the new permission system easier to manage. It's just another name for a user group, but I felt that Teams was a better name. So those are some of the highlights in V5. Of course, there are a ton of other things, minor things, that we have also improved and added that are mentioned in the changelog. But it's a really pleasure to announce that Grafana V5 stable is released today and can be sort of installed whenever you get home. And before I end this talk, I want to thank everyone who's worked on this. So everyone at Grafana Labs, we have made some new hires, so this is not actually everyone, but mainly the core Grafana team, but also everyone has chipped in and made this release happen and be so awesome. So thanks, everyone, and also a big thank you to all the contributors. Grafana wouldn't be what it is without its open source contributors. And I really want to spend time thanking some of our top contributors this last year. And I sort of made this as all sort of users by pull request. We are filtered out all the Grafana Labs employees. So I'm Tanda, thank you. And is there anyone else on this list that is here? Yeah. Right. Thank you as well. Yeah, we're super thankful for people who submit bug reports, issues, pull requests. Without that, Grafana would not be sort of the healthy open source project that it is. We also want to thank people that sort of help answer questions and ask questions as well on the community side. And I want to invite everyone to the launch party of Grafana 5 later tonight. I think you all got details on the location in the email that was sent out yesterday. So see you tonight. And if you have any questions, I think we have time for questions now. Raj will maybe sort of can hand you a mic, or you can...
Any questions from anyone on Grafana 5 features, or what went into the release, or what might break or not if you upgrade, or anything? Yep. Sorry, go ahead. Let me hand you the mic.
Your users and roles, etc., is that LDAP compatible? Or is it locally managed?
So users in...
Are users and groups locally managed, or are they currently, are they LDAP compatible?
I mean, we haven't updated the LDAP support yet. We are looking into doing that, but so far, Teams is only managed through the Grafana's UI and HTTP API. Any more questions?
Do data sources, do they also have permissions?
No, not yet, but it's something that we definitely want to do.
Other questions? Anyone? Let me run up there. Excuse me. Yeah. No? Oh, sorry, who was it? There we go.
Are there any changes to the plugins or applications, the compatibility there?
Most panel plugins specifically are compatible. They might require minor updates to fully take advantage of the new grid, but most of them will work. The only biggest change is that panels are not allowed to sort of overextend their bounds anymore. So if a panel is a specific size, they cannot sort of overflow that. That is not going to be visible. So some panels that sort of take advantage of the fact that panels can be higher than they were allowed to in previous versions, they might look sort of a bit strange. But that's a small set of the available panels that we have tested, so from an external plugin standpoint.
Okay. We got one more.
So any timeline for the real-time data sources?
No. We have done some proof of concept work, that was a while ago, but we haven't worked more on the real-time WebSocket data sources. But that's also something we want to do eventually. But it's just finding time to do it. And really, for this release, really just wanted to improve the core stuff and not add a bunch of new features. But now that we sort of are kind of happy with where Grafana is when in terms of the core features, we can maybe look into that.
Any other questions from anyone? You got it, Trent?
Grafana APIs, any news there? Any changes?
Grafana API?
Yeah.
No, there are no breaking changes. There are new APIs for the dashboard permission and folders, but there should be no real breaking change.
Hey, got time for a few more.
I have a question about the status panel that supports multiple data sources, and I use it a lot. But it's not an official plugin, right? And you just showed the new multi-status panel. Will that support multiple data sources as well? Is that the idea, or are you considering that? Or is status panel the only one that supports not multiple data sources, but multiple queries?
Multiple series.
Multiple series, yeah.
I mean, that's why we want to build either extend the single stat panel so it supports it, or build a new panel that will handle multiple series.
Is there one more from around here? Yep, there you go, sir.
Yeah, how about templated dashboards that works in V4 and then in V5 with the new layouts? I tried it and it was not always correctly.
We're not aware of any sort of changes or breaking for template variables. There might be some edge cases for repeats that maybe it's not working. We have fixed some issues with panel repeats in beta. But I forgot to show you that we do support rows still, and you can use repeated rows and repeated panels, of course. So that's something that should work, and if it isn't working, it's something we can fix.
Okay, I think we have time for one more, maybe two more. Sure. Go ahead, sir.
Influx has its multiple date ranges option. The RP, I don't know the specific name of it. Is there an option to auto-select the right data range for the showing graph? Do you?
Yeah, no, not yet, but it's a popular feature request to be able to do that.
Cool.
Now that you've got V5 out the door, what's kind of the big next thing that you're going to focus on?
I had slides that also talked about vNext, but it kind of distracted a little bit from all the V5 stuff. But we have some plans for, of course, what we're going to do next. We definitely want to go back to more frequent, smaller point releases. V5 was kind of an outlier in the terms of how long we were working on it and how sort of big changes that we worked on. So expect the sort of 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 sort of to come very quickly now. And in terms of features, we hope to get sort of Elasticsearch alerting done sometime in the next 1 or 2 releases. Yeah, we have some, so we want to add more platforms, to support ARM and other sort of officially support more platforms. And work on the multi-stat panel, and we have about 1,000 open feature requests on Grafana. So we're also going to work maybe on improving the LDAP integration to support teams.
I think one last one. Here you go, sir.
Can I have a big thanks for the smooth upgrade path in the past? That was super. As a sysadmin, my life is a lot easier now.
Thanks for that feedback. Awesome. Well, in case it isn't obvious, we're all really excited about Grafana v5, so please give a round of applause for Torkel and for getting it out.